Hello, acoustic guitar fan here, getting ready to review my probably my favorite guitar of all the guitars I own, my Fender American Standard Strat. Now this guitar really holds a special place in my heart. I bought this guitar probably over 20 years ago, even before I got married, even before I had my kids. Um, and of course, I've always loved guitars ever since I was a little kid. When I was 10 years old, I got my first guitar, Sears Roebuck acoustic guitar. The action was probably, you know, made my fingers bleed, but I'm sure you guys, all you guitar players can relate to that story, especially if you're as old as me. But anyways, in my life, I always felt like if I ever ended up with enough money to buy a decent guitar, electric-wise, I would want to get a Fender Strat. Acoustic-wise, of course, in the older days, it was a Martin, but later on, it became a Taylor. So now I'm kind of at a point in my life where I do have all of the dream guitars I've ever wanted, and I still aspire to get, others as time goes on. But for right now, this beautiful guitar here, this Fender American Standard Strat, is probably my most prized possession. I bought this guitar back in 1990 at a little guitar shop in Houston called Rockin' Robin, which has a lot of character in itself. Great little place. If you're ever in Houston, you have to check it out. It's like an institution. But I think what attracted me to this guitar was the fact that this guitar reminded me of one of my favorite all-time movies that I've ever seen, which was The Concert for Bangladesh. Being a big Beatles fan, I always loved George Harrison, and in The Concert for Bangladesh, he plays a Stratocaster that looks exactly like this. And I think the story behind that is that his great friend Eric Clapton happened to be in New York at Manny's, the infamous guitar shop in New York, Manny's, where most of the most renowned rock musicians have bought guitars, and Eric happened to be in Manny's and picked up a bunch of Strats, which he ended up giving out as gifts. I think he gave one to George, his white Strat, and gave one to Stevie Winwood, one to Jeff Beck, I believe, and kept a few for himself. And the story goes that the few that he kept for himself, he ended up stripping apart and taking all the best parts of those guitars and constructing Blackie, of course, his most famous instrument Strat that he played over the years, especially in the 80s. But the uniqueness of this Strat, of course, is the fact that yes, it does look quite a lot like the American Standard Strat that George plays in the Concert for Bangladesh, and it also some other famous guitar player from the late 60s, Mr. J.H. and Jimi Hendrix also played one. Of course, he played it the other way since he's a left-handed guitarist, but if you remember Woodstock, he played one that looked very much like this with the rosewood fretboard and the I don't know what shade of white this is referred to, but it's kind of like maybe a vanilla white to me or something. But anyways, yes, this is an American Standard Strat. In one of my other videos, I talked briefly about it in comparison to a Squier Bullet that I bought recently at Guitar Center. Of course, what attracted me to the Squier Bullet was the sunburst, and that it also had a. Oh, I'm sorry. I said that this is actually a maple fretboard. The rosewood fretboard is on my Squier Bullet. But anyways, in comparing the two guitars, of course, you can tell the workmanship of the American Standard Strat is much better. I really think some of the older guitars, the guitars built a lot earlier in early years seemed to have a better quality. Maybe that's why I didn't part with this guitar for quite a long time. I mean, this is the only guitar I've never sold over the years. This guitar is over 20 years old. I've had it worked on a few times. I've had various things done to it, and you know, like I said, it's in pristine shape. I doubt I'll ever sell it. I love playing it, especially noodling in the evenings. Whenever I get in the mood to noodle, I usually pick this guitar up, and it just has a really beautiful feel to it, as all you Strat players know. Now, I have it hooked up to a Digitech RP90 for that little bit of a reverb and digital delay that you heard. You know, not much more I can say about this guitar. I mean, for all of you Strat lovers out there, all you Fender people, you know what I'm talking about when it comes to Fender. There's just something about Fenders that you know, just grab you. Even with all of the new designs out there right now, you can walk into a guitar shop and see Ibanez's and all different brand guitars, all different shapes and configurations. For me, when I think of an electric guitar, I think of a Fender Strat or a Les Paul. And of course, I don't have any Les Pauls currently. I've owned a few Les Pauls in my time, but I've sold them for whatever reason. Just never found one Les Paul that I really wanted to keep for any length of time. Hopefully one day I will. But for me, this Fender Strat it's kind of like watching a Mark Knopfler video one day when he was talking about his guitar, and he was holding a 50, I think it was a 57 Strat or something, Sunburst, and he was saying, look at this guitar, it looks like it could be flying in outer space, you know, the design. And it's true. I mean, it's just an elegant and beautiful guitar. I mean, I've even read stories of like Jeff Beck when he was younger, in his younger days, or maybe it was George Harrison in his younger days, used to, in his classes, instead of focusing on what his teachers were saying, he would spend hours and hours and hours drawing Fender Strat bodies in his little notebook. Most likely influenced by watching Buddy Holly, which you know, of course, he was one of the first major recording artists to bring the Strat to prominence. And I think in England later it was Hank Marvin in the Shadows. Hank Marvin had that sort of cherry red Strat that, you know, he just made famous. Cherry red Strat with the rosewood fretboard that he made famous. And then of course through the years, other famous Strat players like David Gilmour, and you know, with the black Strat, of course, David Gilmour, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, you know, some more notable Strat players, and of course probably the most notable Strat player of all, Mr. Jimi Hendrix, you know. But not only for those classic artists, but you see the influence of the Strat everywhere. I mean, you know, for me, I think it's just a very, very amazing, innovative, ahead of its time design, and it still holds. It's like a piece of art, I guess, as Mark Knopfler would say. If you ever watch that YouTube video, check it out. It's like a piece of art, and I agree with that. It is certainly like a piece of art, and so I really love this guitar. As you can see, I'm cradling it like it's my baby, but I do love this guitar. And for all you Strat owners out there who might run across this video, you know, you can probably relate exactly to what I'm talking about. So anyways, Fender American Standard Strat, made in the good US of A, just a great instrument, well designed. This particular one was made in 1990, and picked it up in a small guitar shop in Houston called Rockin' Robin. And you can see, even looking at the fretboard, I don't know if you can see it so well in this video, I probably need to have the frets redone a little bit, but generally it's gone through a little bit of playing, not as Not like Stevie Ray's Strat, I guess, you know, because I'm not a club player or anything like that. I'm a player more for myself, and I play on my church's praise team, and that's about the extent of my musical experience. But as far as, you know, getting into the blues or anything like that, or just, you know, having a guitar to noodle on, or jam with, or play a little rock and roll with, or classic rock with, you can't lose with a Fender Strat. You know, it's just an amazingly fantastic, fabulous guitar.